This episode of the Ecommerce Playbook Podcast is brought to you by Toki Loyalty Memberships and Referrals. Right now, Toki is partnering with Common Thread Collective to offer a free 30-day extended trial of their cutting-edge customer loyalty platform. Go to buildwithtoki.com/CTC to accept this offer. That's buildwithtoki, TOKI.com/CTC.
Welcome to another episode of the Ecommerce Playbook Podcast, the interview series where we are diving into the genetic makeup of the GQ giants, the brands that are growing predictably and profitably. And this week we have a monster. This is one of the fastest growing brands in all of ecom. And what's exciting about it is that we're going to a product category you wouldn't expect. Selling food on the internet is a difficult challenge because so much of buying food is related to the ability to taste it, to sample it. And so often the distribution for products in this category exists in grocery and pharmacy and other places where you would much more expect to engage with snack food. But this brand has done the internet well, and they are a GQ giant. And I'm excited to dive in today with Mark Ritz, the founder and CEO of Carnivore Snax. So excitedly, well, this is a similar category we've had. You've heard of ancestral supplements. You've heard us talk about heart and soil. And so there's an underlying macro trend we're going to continue to tap into. But this is a business with a founder that you're not going to want to miss because he really has a sense of deep care and appreciation for building a product and a community that's going to matter for the long term. And it's showing up in the way that his data is revealed. So enjoy Mark Ritz, co-founder, CEO of Carnivore Snax. Welcome back to another episode of the Ecommerce Playbook Podcast. And we are diving into yet another GQ giant. And today's exciting because we're deviating off of this beauty course. We're leaving the skincare behind and we're going into a product category you may not expect to find a GQ giant in. And that is snacks, CPG, consumables being sold on the internet. Yes, food delivered to your door, not from DoorDash, but they are killing it. And so I'm excited today to be joined by Mark Ritz, the co-founder and CEO of Carnivore Snax. Mark, welcome.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude, excited. This is a fun one because I remember, obviously, you're a Twitter guy. You've been on there for a while, and I think we started by interacting there. And I remember the first time I got a chance to take a look at your business, and I was blown away. Like, you've really got something incredibly special here. So before we dive into the DNA and the genetic attributes of this category, what the heck is Carnivore Snax? Where did you come up with this? And what are you all up to?
Yeah, man, for sure. Well, hey, appreciate the kind words. Carnivore Snax was actually developed by my co-founder, Sylvia Tabor. She's always been in the health space. She's like biohacking and trying every little different thing she could to optimize her health and cure some underlying ailments. And the carnivore diet was where she really found a lot of success. So she did it strictly for 3 years, just meat and water, very aggressively. And I think because of that, she became more of the well-known names during the very early stage of carnivore. And she was commuting very long drives to work and just didn't really have that snack that met her needs, which again would just be meat and salt. You know, everything that kind of comes in a package on the jerky side had too many ingredients, marinades. She wanted to stay away from marinades. She just wanted simplicity. And so she created this product while she was working for her aunt who was making a similar product in the pet space. And we met through my first business. She reached out and asked if I knew anybody who could make a website. And at that point, I asked her to send some product and we ended up partnering up because I loved it.
So the first episode we did on GQ Giants was the crew over at Heart and Soil. I think you know Dean and those guys well, right? There's like an overlap in terms of the customer, I think, here and what they care about. And it sort of sets up what I think has been an ongoing trend of something I've been trying to bring to people, which is this idea of like, find the place where the wind is at your back, right? Ride a wave if you can. So how much of what you all are doing do you think is connected to the fact that there is an underlying cultural trend related to carnivore diet, a pursuit of health in a different way, snacks as an alternative to sort of the processed food world? Like, how much do you think you guys are sitting at the center of that? And how much does that matter to you?
I think it mattered a lot more when we first got started in the first year or two. I think you've probably seen it play out with paleo and keto, and they've kind of, hit their peaks, and we see it to maybe kind of lose its ground a little bit, maybe even in the wake of carnivore. And I think that the carnivore community made it really easy for us to launch, validate the concept, have a customer segment to go at. But if I've noticed anything that has been instrumental to rapid growth, because I do feel like we've almost exhausted that market a little bit. And it does, continue to grow, but it's really been protein. Like, there's been this newfound or refound prioritization of protein as the primary macronutrient. And we sell 5-ounce bags. Traditionally, you're looking at like 1.5-ounce bags when you're going to stores and you're buying jerky. And when you can look at the back of our package and see that there's 75 grams of protein on the low end and 120 grams on the high end, depending on which cut you're going for, it's really easy to get your protein in. So we've really started to attack that angle, and it's opened up a really, really large audience for us. And so that's kind of how I'd speak to that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just looked, while you were talking, I was looking at Google keyword trend volume around both carnivore diet and protein. And both of them peaked over the last 5 years. Their interest peak level was in January of this year. So yeah, that's super interesting. And I think, so that, when I think about GQ score 226, a duckweed brand, and if I look at the unique attributes going down your score, there's one, which is the efficiency of new customer acquisition in a product category where food is hard to be efficient on first order profit, because generally speaking, this is a sampling problem, right? Like, this is like, people want to taste the thing, and buying what is not cheap stuff on the internet is a pretty big risk. And so it seems like part of this is you're able to overcome that in some ways with the people's understanding of carnivore and else. But the real magic here is that, like, the customers endlessly come back. You guys have 180% increase in LTV in a year, 60% in 60 days. Like, people freaking love this product, right? And so that you combine those two things together, where you have this cultural trend overlaid with something that is really freaking awesome, and it's a powerful combination.
For sure. I mean, speaking to like first purchase too, when I first thought about how I wanted to sell this product, having worked for Costco for 12 years, I knew that I wanted to sell more of it than anyone. Sure, I wanted to create some really competitive pricing. I wanted to make sure that I had this foundation of margins that was comfortable. But for me, it was just like, if I could sell more of it at one time than anybody else, we got better potential to be profitable on first purchase. And that's what we've done. I mean, first order AOV is $90 plus on Meta. And I would probably lean to say that in the jerky space, you see a lot of these small packages that are like bundled, and like each package costing somewhere between like $10 and $15. And so for me, it's just like big bags, sell as much of it as I can.
That's super interesting. So that was like a very intentional thought that it was rooted in sort of your Costco experience. Like, so is that, give me a little bit about the history of how your experience at Costco informed that idea.
I became obsessed with their model, man. I mean, I started literally taking chickens out of an oven there, and then moved into membership. And once I got into membership and I had a computer in front of me, and I started to fall in love with, some of the numbers and just the impact of how the memberships worked, I really started to understand, okay, here's why they sell things in bulk. Like, they do it at a lower margin, but to just generate, right, more contribution. Like, it's pretty simple. And for me, I was just like, look, this product's so good and so unique that I'm pretty confident in our ability to sell a lot of it and be able to, keep them coming back.
What's fascinating though is that, like, generally speaking, if you think about loading up the first purchase, there's a trade-off to the rate at which you'll acquire the second purchase. But people are flying through this stuff, dude. Like, you're getting them to come back quickly as well. So is the consumption rate something that you had to educate around and work towards saying, hey, this is how much of it you should eat? Or is that just naturally the behavior that customers started displaying?
Well, it's probably not a juicy answer for you, man, but I really do think that it's how different and unique the product is. It's just, it's a different chewing experience and texture that melts in your mouth, that really satiates you. And they're bigger pieces. So it's not like little pieces, and our top sellers are their bigger pieces. And it's just really easy to go through a bag. And again, it's just like, if people are paying attention to their protein and they're like, all right, I want to get, let's say 200 grams of protein in, I can eat a bag of this and be halfway there. And so I think on the protein side, there's some education that really helps, but the taste and uniqueness is definitely what keeps people coming back.
So we combine first order profitability that's supported by a high AOV that gives us the ability to be aggressive in bidding, right? To go out and pay a good CPA to stand still make money. You've got good LTV in a long horizon and a short horizon. We've got good product margin, right? In the category, again, supported by the price and the AOV. The other thing though, when I watch, so we get to work with you guys in a growth strategy perspective, you get to work with Chase on our team. And the biggest challenge I see in this business is actually usually related to the supply chain. And it appears from the outside looking in, and I'm sort of just a lurker in your Slack channels mainly, is that you have like a really high standard for like what's going to make it out the door, right? So talk a little bit about how hard it is to actually make this product and where the complexities lie in scaling that portion of it.
Whew. Man, it's super hard. I always tell people, I'm running two businesses. One business that I had no idea I would ever run, right? Been in the e-commerce space for 7 years. So you got the e-commerce digital side. That to me is really one business. And then the other business is the manufacturing business. So there's a lot that goes into capacity planning, which is a hindrance, and asset management, through the financials. But then with the supply chain, because we source only meat from regenerative farms, and then the key here is in the US, right? New Zealand is where a lot of people go to get regeneratively raised meat, because that's just how they've done it forever. And it's just the abundance and the cost is a lot less expensive to source from there. It was a challenge, but the thing is like what we did really early on is we recognize that is always going to be the biggest bottleneck in our business because we haven't really experienced too many issues on the marketing front. So I invested heavily into supply chain. I have arguably the best aggregator in the attributed space that exists. And he's on our account full time. And we've got a number of different partners. And I think our grip on the supply chain has been arguably the greatest key to our early success and our rapid growth. So is it difficult? Absolutely. But one way I balance that is, and this is, I think, frowned upon in many businesses, and it does cause a lot of internal issues when it comes to shipping and just process. A lot of SKUs. So one of the reasons it brought in a lot of SKUs is to be able to have things that are similar to other things that may go out of stock, and we can educate on that. The other thing is that we are committed as a company to try to make this as profitable of a transaction for our partners because we care about them so much. And in order to do that in this space, you got to try to buy as much as the animal as possible. And they call that whole carcass utilization. So we are now a very enticing customer to many regenerative farms out there who are now coming to us. And so it's made it a little bit easier taking the pressure off.
So there's so much there, man, that I think is a counter to common tropes of how to think about e-commerce. A lot of times the complexity of supply chain is a thing that may turn someone off to an industry. But in almost every case of the successful businesses that I see in this GQ analysis or in our partners is that they have they have leverage in some portion of the business from competition, whether it's they have access to a giant audience from an influencer that creates leverage in new customer acquisition, or they have leverage against an influx of competition because of the supply chain complexity that they've solved and the relationships that exist on that part of it. And one of the things that's hard about e-commerce is that so quickly in a category where the barriers to entry are low, all the profits get competed away. There are people that will come in and undercut price and sell on Amazon and take more until it eventually all just disappears. Like Kalo rings was the ultimate example of this, right? It's the silicone wedding ring with zero barrier to entry. And when we started the game, we were the only ring on Amazon. And now you can go buy 100 of them for 5 cents from 50,000 different providers. All the profit gets competed away. But you've actually gone out and stated, no, we're going to overinvest in this complex problem. We're actually going to value our suppliers. We know that it's rare. And it makes it hard for entrants to come in and compete with you, right? Like it would be very hard to recreate what you've developed, which continues to allow you to grow efficient new customer acquisition because the supply side of competitors is pretty small. And I've noticed this with everybody that's in this space is that the supply chain is pretty small. And so it's hard to get in the game. It's hard to come in and compete.
Yeah, you said it extremely well. It's positioned us to defend against newcomers, which we are seeing them. But, the relationships we've built over the last 3 years and the volumes obviously have been instrumental.
I'm interested too. So the other thing you do is you run a really solid lean team. And I've gotten to know Mark, your fractional CFO, who's just a freaking awesome human. Obviously, we work together. You work with another agency that's awesome. Like, I'm curious how you think about building your team and how much of it is outsourced and how lean you've kept it. Like, tell me about your vision for building the Carnivore Snax organization and how you've approached it.
Well, in the beginning, I think because I've just had my hands on a lot of things in the e-commerce space, starting with email. And I think when you get involved in email marketing, like it almost forces you to have to really learn every corner of the e-commerce side, even operationally, which led me to opportunities to become director of e-com for a couple different companies before this. I think that's helped because where we're extremely lean is on the digital side. And I keep it that way. And we're getting to the point where it's maybe a little too lean on that side, but I've kept it that way because, again, the focus has been on the manufacturing side. Like that's where we prioritize building our team. I mean, look, our product it does not take a short amount of time to make. I mean, it takes a long time and it requires a lot of hands. And so we're at 50 employees, 15 minutes down the road, 12,000 square foot. We're actively looking for a second warehouse now and building leadership over there to the point where I can go there less, which has happened recently and it's been great. And it's allowed me to come back in here and do some of the things that I need to do. That's been the approach. It's been prioritizing the manufacturing and operation side, because if you don't have fast shipping, if you don't get things right on the operational side, if you're not making a great product, if the quality control, if somebody's not heading that up, you're going to run into issues with the business there. So I've really just chosen to continue to hire and allocate resources over there until I feel like I'm at my wit's end on the digital side.
If you're still using a first generation loyalty platform like Yotpo or Loyalty Lion and running a traditional points type program, think again. Toki's research proves that running a cashback loyalty program or a paid membership loyalty program can increase your retention revenue by 5x. Toki is easy to implement, design friendly, and integrated with all the leading platforms in the Shopify ecosystem. Sound too good to be true? See for yourself. Right now, they're offering a 30-day free trial and free onboarding for Ecommerce Playbook listeners. So go to buildwithtoki.com/CTC to try them out for free for 30 days, or click the link in the show notes. That's buildwithtoki, TOKI.com/CTC.
Yeah, that's that level of focus on the understanding what the core value proposition of the business is and really ensuring that your competency lies there, I think is where a lot of people miss the temptation to trying to go do all these things at once, right? Like I need everybody here all the time, but as a leader, like you're a finite resource. Your ability to focus and drive attention. And so to be able to layer in experts as needed along that journey while you construct, I think is super, super interesting. One question I have, and so I mentioned Mark, your fractional CFO, who's just awesome human. He and I have gotten to spend a lot of time talking together because he's compelled by sort of a similar vision I have to making marketing and finance come together more. And his vision is a lot about helping an entrepreneur self-actualize into what they want the business to do for them, and what your financial goals are and your dreams of the business, and really making sure that the strategy aligns to that expectation. And when I think about Carnivore, like you're growing at a really great rate, but you probably could grow faster if you wanted to. Like, how are you thinking about what the expectations you have for this business are? And how do you hold those? Like, what's the constraint in your head that's keeping you at the consistent pace that you're on? And where does that come from? Why are you able to resist the temptation to try and go faster and harder?
I think there's a couple things there. Number one, quality. And I think I had a tweet. We had our first experience where like, I felt like we grew a little quick and we were missing 2 small steps in the process that just completely got pushed to a side. And it really had an impact negatively on the product. And so that's like number one. I just know it. I see it. I see when we grow too fast, you get a lot of people involved, that process can break. And so I'm somewhat patient on that side. I think it helps that the company's been, pretty profitable as well. Kind of takes the stress off there. But, it's also timing related of making large purchases, because in order to grow this business, it's predicated on large pieces of machinery. And that's where Mark like really helps. I mean, the day I went out and hired Mark was the day that I just didn't feel comfortable anymore making big financial decisions. I'm on my own because I really wanted to feel confident in the timing. And so to be able to model this out, it really helps. And we're okay with the pace. Like I'm pitched every day on Amazon services. I'm pitched every day on, potential wholesale stuff. And again, you got to look at supply chain and I'm really comfortable with how profitable we are. And maybe it's a comfort thing. I don't know, but looking for a new warehouse, that's going to unlock some pretty serious growth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's one of the hardest things, I think, when you're in the midst of a moment where success and the wind seems to be at your back in a way that the market is sort of there for the taking, and to think about how aggressively to move into that moment. And I've experienced it both ways, where at Kalo, I think we underserved the opportunity that we had because we didn't understand how quick the competition would deteriorate the category. Like we should have gone way harder, way faster. And then early on, I worked at a company called EvoShield. I was like a fractional CMO there for a while. A company they sold sports equipment, and they did the opposite. They went into every product category way too fast, and the quality deteriorated. And they went from being best in class quality product to like selling socks with their logo on it in ways that it commoditized the brand and it deteriorated everything. And so there's always this like window that you're trying to thread between not missing the market and waiting for this, all of a sudden protein's not cool anymore and carbs are in or whatever it might be, but also ensuring that quality exists. And I think I'm always curious how people process that idea and how it fits within the confines of your big dream for the business, like, and where you go from there.
I think honestly, like, as I hear you say it out loud, like it does. I mean, the constraint, probably the greatest constraint to actually give you guys a visual picture. It's like you imagine a warehouse, right? And it's got product, it's got steel, it's all stocked, and like there's bins and people are picking and packing. That's not how it looks at our warehouse, because you have a finite amount of equipment, right?
It's like a slaughterhouse, or what? Give me a visual. What should I be picturing right now?
I mean, look, obviously our product is dehydrated, so it needs large dehydrators to make the product, but it takes very long. All right. It's not a jerky product. It's different. The time that it takes to make the product is a constraint on the business. And that's when capacity comes in, right? So then you produce, let's just say 3,000 units in a day. And let's say that's your max capacity. And you're sitting here selling 2,200, 2,400, items a day. And if you're making 15 to 20 different SKUs, the reliance on incredibly optimized demand planning of what SKU needs to go in when there's a 3-day lead time between starting it and finishing it, dude, it provides a lot of pressure. And that's why, Chase is like, yo, let's go to the moon. Let's go to the moon. We got all this. And like, but he understands our business now, and which is great. That's where it gets really tough. Is it an inventory constraint? Yes. But it's all predicated on the manufacturing capacity. Could we go out and buy a whole bunch of dehydrators with, the cash in the bank right now? We could. However, we're at an electric capacity in our current facility. So that's why we're moving into we're adding a second facility. So that's the biggest constraint, man. It's just like, there's just not a lot of inventory, not a lot of product to pick from, and you got to manufacture a number of SKUs.
So how about that? Anybody listening? How many of you have a constraint that's related to the amount of energy utilization that you're using in your warehouse? The literal grid can't support this man. He needs to get this man some power out there. Let's get some windmills out there or something. That's like, it's one of the things, man, I'm always blown away by what is the critical path in an e-commerce business. Every business has some novel problem that you're trying to solve in ways that it's like you were talking today, we got on the call and I asked, how are you doing? He had that look of an entrepreneur that just has some weird problem on his plate at all times, and so finding power supply, I love it. Okay. The last piece about this, I think, and this continues to be a common feature, I think, in all the brands that we've spoken to as well, is that you guys don't just depend on paid media as a mechanism for acquisition, despite being really efficient at that. You've also found ways to drive relationships and influencers, and you have a bunch of people organically creating content about you, where there is a surrounding halo effect of organic demand that's created. Talk a little bit about how you've gotten the product in the hands of influential people and how your customers have sort of gone about telling your story for you that's created sort of this organic marketing flywheel?
For sure. Number one, it always starts with the uniqueness of the product. Like when people take it out of the bag and then realize it's basically not jerky, and then they try it, it's something like they feel very proud that they found this. And so we see more action taken organically to take their phone out and say something about it or show people. And in our ads, like what converts the best is seeing that product being pulled out. And so the fact that we have that happen organically helps us with seeding content. And it just really, it helps with the virality, because once people see it, they're like, oh man, like I got to try this. And in terms of, so obviously, I think a lot of people know that Rogan has been a huge supporter of the product. Again, and look, I mean, he had the same feeling, right? So he found the product, he bought the product, he bought a lot of the product, and he shared the product organically. And that's kind of how that relationship started. I really think that if you can make something that's just visually different, texturally different, if that's even a word, like you're going to get the organic shares, you know? So you think about people, oh, I'm just gonna make a new jerky, but it's going to be a different flavor. I mean, so I think that the difference in our product is what's created that success on the organic side.
It's the purple cow, right? I don't know if you've ever read Seth Godin's book, but I think this is a thing that's so underappreciated, is the uniqueness and novelty catches people's eye and gives people a reason to tell a story. The other thing I've noticed is for people who are in like this diet process of trying to get a bunch of protein, there's a lot of like sharing how you're doing it, right? And so one of the things, like I found this company called Muscle Egg. Have you ever heard of these guys?
No.
Okay. So Muscle Egg sells flavored egg whites that you drink. Okay. And I forget, I came across it on some podcast, you know, somebody was talking about it, and it's just liquid egg whites that they flavor. Like there's mocha flavor or chocolate flavor or whatever. And it's like, in terms of the protein density, it's like amazing. And it tastes pretty good. And so you order it. It's a janky website. It's kind of old school. It comes in like with dry ice, these giant containers, like probably a horrible e-commerce business from a unit economic standpoint. But like I tell everybody about it, partially because I found it. And I think that makes me kind of cool, right? It's the same thing I feel like with Carnivore Snax, where it's been like, oh, you like beef jerky? Let me show you this actual cooler, better thing, you know? And I think that novelty is so underappreciated. That's what it was with Kalo. It was the same thing. It's just like, oh, you have a wedding ring? Check this out. Like it's just, people want, there's this great saying that there's a creative agency here in LA that's like called First Media. And they got famous because they ran all these sites for like 3 straight years in the late 2010s. They had like the most viewed videos on social. They had sites like Blossom, where they would do these like dessert builds and all sorts of like really clever social videos. And I listened to their chief creative officer once give a talk, and he said that when we think about creating, we're not creating for our audience. We're creating for our audience's audience. We want to give them something that if they share it, it will make them the hero, right? And so that's really the key, is how do you make your customer the hero in their community? And if they share Carnivore Snax with all their friends, they're cool. They showed an awesome product. And that, especially for early adopters in the early stages of brands, is so key, that you're reinforcing their identity as the thought leader amongst their friends. And so there's an idea there that I think you're exactly right. It just hits on so perfect.
That's one of I'm the best copywriter. Like I'll put him up against anybody who's really brought our brand voice to life since the beginning, since the Kickstarter. And that's one of the angles that we take on many of the messages, is like being the cool kid, right? Like you're the cool kid if you found this, and being able to kind of flaunt that. It's a messaging angle that we're very conscious of.
Amazing, man. So what's next? Where do you go from here other than continue to scale up the supply chain? Are there other product categories you're interested in exploring? Do you go to wholesale distribution? Like what is the vision for you in terms of where you go from here?
I do think Amazon is probably in the cards when I feel really comfortable enough to support the channel. When we look at the search traffic on Amazon, like, I mean, the revenue that we could drive on that channel is pretty aggressive. So I do think Amazon's probably the next route. I would lean this and say hopefully within a year. Yeah, man, I do. I think there's another line that we're interested in getting into with the organs, and don't want to share too much on it, but little bit different of a delivery method to kind of separate us from the pack. And then also to provide a level of convenience, get your organs while you're getting your snacks. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity, and it's something I'm pretty aware of, because I understand like making this product, and when it takes 3 days to turn around one SKU, like that could be a constraint. So bringing in another product line that's just easy to ship out when people order it with the same level of sourcing standards, I think there's an unlock there to grow the business pretty well.
One of another thing I forgot I wanted to ask you about, because I think it connects to this idea of LTV, is you've also pursued membership. So can you talk a little bit about membership versus subscription, how you're analyzing those values? Because this is the thing I'm really trying to work out. Like Bamboo Earth, we have membership as well. There's a lot of people trying it, and I haven't resolved for myself yet what I believe about this mechanism. So can you talk about a little bit what you've tried and what your experience has been with membership versus subscription?
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, like I've always just wanted a membership business, right? Just because of the Costco experience. I mean, that's what I tried with my first business. So like being analytical about it from the beginning wasn't really it. It was just knowing the impact of a membership and being able to build an experience around it that I was really interested in. And because I've worked inside of some very successful subscription brands before this, I just see it. It's just, no matter how you spin it, the consumer is just, they feel like the main benefit to a subscription is set it and forget it. It's just showing up at your door. Like, that's nice. But forget it is where I think we lose out on opportunity. And for me, on the membership side, like, one thing I wanted to do was bring in a lot of cuts that I know I can't get in abundance. And I think a lot of people might say, well, I'm just not going to buy that then, I'm just not going to add another SKU. So many people we have, a couple 100,000, 300,000 people on the list. You blast out to your list, whatever. And all of a sudden your stuff's like sold out in a day. So I was like, okay, let's create a paid membership, give people access to Wagyu, some of the rare cuts. Like, that's a really cool experience and a cool benefit that, maybe you could build into a subscription, but you're also asking for people to commit. And then, you're kind of eliminating the people that don't want to commit to recurring. So that was one side. I love, at Costco, I love 2% cash back on everything you buy. You're getting this commitment, right? So it's like, why would I go buy a meat snack anywhere else when I can get 5% cash back? Or, just think of it as like Costco, right? Why am I going to go over here when I'm going to get cash back? And it's at a pretty affordable price. So those were like the two main levers. And then we do a lot of messaging, segmented messaging to our members. It's even beyond just these limited edition cuts. We'll do, when something doesn't come out like to our standards, but we think people will like it, but they'll know it's not the best they've ever had. We'll message our members and we'll say, hey, like, we had a batch come out. Wasn't phenomenal, but it's great. And we're going to discount for you. You're going to get 5% cash back like you always do. And you get access to this. And so we keep in touch, and there's a lot of moments you got to think of it, a lot of these moments on the fly. There's a lot of opportunities to build value into a membership that I just don't think are as possible in a subscription. We offer subscriptions on the website, and we have many people who are subscribers and members. I mean, why not be a member, get 5% cash back on your recurring purchases too? So, if you can stack those two together, LTV on those customers is huge. So, that's kind of how we think about it, is just this more VIP experience,
Yeah. So I've never heard anyone call out the idea of set it and forget it, and then sort of saying, why would I want to be forgotten? I think it's such an obvious, as you say it, I'm like, yeah, why would you want to be forgotten? That's sort of the opposite of what a brand is trying to do all the time. So super interesting, man.
There are new softwares out there. So some of the subscription softwares are doing a great job trying to solve those problems. But again, I just think that it's been the same for so long that some people won't get out of their own heads. And this allows us to, more easily sell to them.
That's awesome. Well, I hope what everybody hears is the intention that this dude goes after everything with. It's thoughtful, There's a genuine care from the quality of the product, the quality of the experience for his vendors, he even mentioned, which is a rare attribute, to the care for the VIPs customers. It shows up in everything that you do, Mark, and the experience of working with you. I feel the same thing. So amazing business. Hopefully you all learned something cool about another product category, a different one than maybe those that we have seen before. Go out and try it, carnivoresnax.com. Follow him on Twitter. What's your name on Twitter? I don't know. Give yourself a quick plug.
It's Ritzfit. All right.
There you go. At Ritzfit on Twitter. Mark, great to chat with you, man. Appreciate the time.